What is up, guys? Welcome back to Just the Guy on my lunch break talking fight sports. I appreciate you joining me once again. Hey, if it's your first time on the channel, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Don't think about it, just hit the subscribe button. Just do it. Just do it right now. I would do it for you. It helps out. I'm working really hard doing a video at least every day trying to get this channel to grow and grow and grow. If you want a veteran fan's perspective on this sport, I'm the place to come. I've been watching this since 1993 when Hoist Gracie walked in the octagon with a gi on, and it was still on VHS tapes. Okay? So I've watched the sport grow, I've watched the sport evolve, and I've been keeping up with the changing tides of this sport all the way up to 2024. I still to this day watch every one of the fight nights, I watch every one of the pay per views. It's just my thing, it's just something I do. Okay, so if you enjoy that sort of holistic perspective, the objective sort of perspective, that's the kind of perspective I'm going to give you. So if you like that idea, if you enjoy that, if you like the idea of hearing from a guy who's been watching the sport since the very beginning, hit that subscribe button. I'd appreciate it if you'd like the video as well and leave a comment. All of those things help the YouTube algorithm to push my content, to help the channel grow. So I would very much appreciate it if you guys would hit that subscribe button. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Just do it. All right? Otherwise, you're consuming my content for free. And that just. It just feels like I'm being used. I'm just playing. Anyway, not to get too much in my feelings, but this video is going to be about the upcoming fight, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Garry. One of the things that I love about the UFC is the fact that they are willing to take two guys at the very top of their games, right in their primes, both of them undefeated, everything on the line to lose. UFC sticks them in the cage together. As one of the reasons that it has surpassed the sport of boxing is because the UFC, most of the time, gives us these sort of fights, pits the best against the best. Okay, so I think that this is going to be a hell of a fight. I'm going to give you my prediction on who I think O is going to go after this fight. Okay, I don't want to tell you right off the gate. I want you to listen and hear what I have to say, and I'm going to tell you a little more towards the end who I think is going to have a 1 on their record after this. Okay, so Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's 18-0, 8 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission, 9 first-round finishes. Okay, anytime you look and you see that a guy has more wins by submission than he does by knockouts, you can bet that this guy is probably more of a grappler. Rakhmonov, being from the region of the world he's from, very, very good sambo practitioner, lots of foot sweeps, lots of hip tosses. He is one of the best at getting people to the ground, okay? And if you look at his last few fights, when he was up against specifically strikers, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You know, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, despite being 40 years old, is still no walk in the park for anyone in the octagon unless he gets taken down. We all know that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is one of the best on the feet, you know, a point fighting karate specialist. Anyone who chooses his poison and stands on the feet for 3 rounds, 5 rounds, whatever it is, with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, typically loses. It's not always by knockout, but you are not going to outpoint and decision win somebody like Wonderboy Thompson if you choose to stand on the feet with him. Even Shavkat Rakhmonov, even being a decent striker, you know, a good striker. I would say he's a good striker, although he does sometimes defensively kind of leave himself open some. He did show that in the Jeff Neal fight. He got hit quite a lot in the Jeff Neal fight. Luckily, he has somewhat of a chin. Luckily, he's a bigger individual than Jeff Neal, and I think Jeff Neal just didn't have the power to put him away. If he did have that power, I think he could have gotten Shavkat out of there because Shavkat was getting hit in that fight. Okay, but over Wonderboy Thompson, win by submission in the second round. Over Jeff Neal, win by submission third round. Okay, look at his fight before that, Neil Magny. Neil Magny's a veteran, taller guy. He's more of a wrestling type, okay, and he does do quite a bit of clinching and wrestling, pushing guys up against the fence, that sort of thing. But this just goes to show what kind of level to the sambo, what kind of level to the grappling and the submission game when you get somebody like Shavkat Rakhmonov. Neil Magny was absolutely no match whatsoever for Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov literally pretty much had his way with Neil Magny. I know Neil Magny's a little bit older at this point. He's not necessarily a top contender, I wouldn't say, but he was submitted by Rakhmonov in the second round as well. Before that, Rakhmonov versus Harris. Rakhmonov just close to the end of the first round sweeps Harris. Beautiful sweep right onto his back, lands on top of him. This is his only KO TKO finish within the UFC, and he did that by sweeping his feet, getting him on his back, getting on top of him, passing his guard and landing a good strike. And then from there, he kind of hurt him. Harris was a little out of it, and he finished him with ground and pound. So the ref jumped in and stopped it. That is his only win in the UFC by KO TKO. And it happened how? Via ground and pound. Okay? That's important here. All right? When we go to talk about Ian Garry here in a few minutes. Before that, Rakhmonov versus Prazeres. Again, Prazeres, Brazilian guy, comes from definitely a jiu-jitsu background. Still, Rakhmonov won this fight by submission in the second round. Okay, before that, Oliveira versus Rakhmonov finished him by submission at the end of the first round. Okay, so you look at his record, 6 fights. I'm not going to go back to his complete record looking at what he did in other organizations, but as far as his 6 fights in the UFC, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 submissions and 1 KO TKO, and the 1 TKO that he did have was from ground and pound, from getting a guy on the ground and then finishing him there. Okay, so you can just look at his last 6 fights and right out of the gate where Shavkat Rakhmonov's bread and butter is going to be. His bread and butter is his sambo. His bread and butter is being able to take clinch, then take the fight to the ground where he is most comfortable. And at that point, you get somebody like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who's like a fish out of water on the ground. He was absolutely no match for the bigger, stronger, and more technical grappler like Shavkat Rakhmonov. Okay? And then if you look over here at Ian Garry, Ian Garry is also undefeated. Okay? 15-0. But you look at his record and his wins: 7 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission, 4 first round finishes. Okay? Quite a difference. Quite a difference. This is the key here, and I want you to listen closely. All right? Shavkat Rakhmonov, 8 wins by knockout, 10 wins by submission. So more wins by submission than wins by knockout for Shavkat Rakhmonov. Ian Garry, 7 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. 1 win by submission. Okay? This is very, very telling about what is going to happen in this fight. And if you look further down, we look at Ian Garry's last few fights. Fight against Venom Page. I mean, man, that was painful to watch. Partly because you got Venom Page, who has a sort of similar background of someone like a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, that point karate fighting, that taekwondo style, lunging in quite a lot, bouncing up and down, lunging in, picking you apart with the 1-2s, then getting out of the way before you get hit back, hands down, bouncing. You get a lot of that stuff, which unfortunately that did make for kind of a boring fight in my opinion. But unanimous win decision by Ian Garry. He did use quite a bit of clinch work in this fight, but listen, the reason he did that is because he knew that he was up against a pure striker. Okay, a pure striker like Michael Venom Page. Very interesting how both of these last opponents for each of these guys, it's like they were fighting mirror images of the other guy's opponent. Michael Venom Page and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, if one wasn't black and one wasn't white, and you saw the way they both moved in the ring, you would think they were the same guy. Very, very, very similar fighting styles. Okay, and it's fair to say that they both, Ian Garry and Shavkat Rakhmonov, used similar methods in beating those pure strikers. Pure strikers like Venom Page and Wonderboy Thompson are not very adept on the ground. They're not very adept in grappling and submission and stuff like that. They do enough to get by, but in their training camps, more what they're focused on is takedown defense. Okay? And a lot of times they'll get pretty good at keeping from getting taken down. But if they get up against someone who is just too good in the clinch and is just too good with their judo and their sambo and stuff like that, and they can't keep it on the feet, they want to keep it on the feet where they can play to their strengths, and every fighter wants to do that. But if they're not able to keep it on the feet, then they're like a fish out of water when they get on the ground. Okay, they have very limited skill down there. Okay, so Ian Garry before that fight against Jeff Neal, split decision, very close fight. That concerns me for Ian Garry going to a very close split decision with Jeff Neal. Now, I'm not saying Jeff Neal is not good. Jeff Neal is a good fighter, but Shavkat Rakhmonov, this is a mutual opponent that they both had together, and Shavkat Rakhmonov dispatched of Jeff Neal. Now, when he stood on his feet with him in the pocket, which was kind of foolhardy as far as I'm concerned for Shavkat Rakhmonov, he definitely won't be able to do that, and he definitely, I feel like, needs to try to get the fight to the ground quicker with Ian Garry, because Ian Garry is a taller, lengthier opponent, and I think if Shavkat Rakhmonov does play that stand-up game for too long with Ian Garry, that it could be potentially dangerous. But I think Ian Garry is going to be looking to try to get in there quick, put the heat on Shavkat Rakhmonov quick from a stand-up position, okay? Ian Garry's team has to know that Shavkat is going to be looking to take this to the ground, okay? Before that, Neil Magny, Ian Garry won unanimous decision over Neil Magny. So that's another opponent that they have had in common. Before that, Ian Garry versus Rodriguez, TKO, KO win for Ian Garry. Before that, Machado Garry versus Song Kanan. He actually fought this past weekend. KO, TKO win. For that, Machado Garry versus Green. Let's see what that guy's first name is. What is that guy's first name? I don't know. Either way, decision win. Before that, Weeks, decision win. Machado Garry versus Williams, decision win, or KO, TKO. So, Jesus. Ian Garry is going to have trouble with the grappling of Shavkat Rakhmonov. Okay? And if you look at takedown accuracy, the takedown accuracy of Shavkat Rakhmonov is 29%, while the striking accuracy is 61%. If you look over at Ian Garry, takedown accuracy 56%, but the striking accuracy a little bit less at 55%. And you hear this and you're like, well, wait a minute. Ian Garry's takedown accuracy is higher than Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's a better takedown artist. Shavkat Rakhmonov, his takedown accuracy is only 29%. No, because this is not taking into account how many are attempted and how many are landed. Okay, so listen to this. takedowns attempted for Shavkat Rakhmonov are 17. Takedowns landed are 2. Okay, so that's where the 29% comes from. Ian Machado Garry, takedowns attempted are only 9. Okay, so takedowns attempted for Ian Machado Garry are basically half of what Shavkat Rakhmonov is going for. So Ian Machado Garry is not trying to take the fight to the ground as much as Shavkat is, okay? Because his bread and butter is on the feet. Now, I don't want to just go on forever and ever and ever and ever with this. I think that Ian Machado Garry is going to lose his first fight here. I do believe that with all of my heart, and I think the reason is because he is not going to be able to keep the fight on the feet. He could prove me wrong. I know he's a smart kid. I know that he really wants to keep that O in his record. And so I know that he and his team are probably going to be very, very prepared for a grappling heavy Shavkat Rakhmonov. But until you've been in there with a guy like that who has those sort of throws, those sort of foot sweeps, those sort of sambo techniques that an Irish chap is just not really going to be used to, and I don't know of anyone in Ian Garry's camp who is going to be able to emulate the fighting style and especially the grappling, throw heavy style of Shavkat. I don't know anyone in his camp that's going to be able to emulate that. And I think that Ian Garry is going to get in there. I think he's going to try to keep his distance. He's going to try to get in there and hurt Shavkat early. I think that's going to be the plan. It's interesting because typically you don't really see that with Ian Garry. He's a very cautious sort of fighter. He's a guy who is going to kind of keep his distance. He's going to pick you apart, chip away at you just a little bit at a time. Chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away until ultimately you start to fade. And then that's when he comes on and starts to land more heavily and more often. Okay. Which is one of the reasons that there's so many decisions on his record. I don't think that Ian Garry can't put people away. I just think that he doesn't because he's playing it too safe. He wants to remain undefeated. He doesn't want to lose. It's understandable. It's understandable. It's hard to go 15-0 in MMA these days. It's hard to go 18-0 in MMA these days. So obviously both of these guys want to get the win. But I think Ian Garry's going to try to go in there kind of hard and fast. Looking at the fight with Jeff Neal and Shavkat here recently, it's obvious that Shavkat does not want to be on his feet with some of these top level strikers. It's obvious that, don't get me wrong, he's got some skills there, but he gets caught, guys. He gets hit, okay? And if he was getting hit by Jeff Neal in those boxing exchanges, you can best believe he's going to get hit at a distance by Ian Garry. So the real question is whether Ian Garry's going to be able to get in there and hurt him early, hurt him to the body, get him thinking to the body, and then maybe go up top with either a kick or a straight punch right down the pipe. If he's able to do that, I think that Ian Garry could absolutely win this fight. But it's going to have to be a KO or TKO. I don't see Ian Garry beating Shavkat Rakhmonov by decision. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is too good of a grappler. He's too good in the clinch. He's too good with his throws, too fluid with his throws. And you can tell when he gets in there and he clinches up with guys that guys just they're not used to it. They're not used to someone that is on that sort of level. They don't train with guys that are on that sort of level. And he's so good at getting a hold of guys and kind of luring them to sleep. And then all of a sudden he gets their weight going one way. And the next thing you know, woo, they're going for a ride. Okay? He's so good at this. And I just think that eventually he's going to be able to avoid most of anything devastating coming from Ian Garry. He's going to be able to get in, get his hands on Ian Garry, clinch with him, get him to the ground some way or another, whether it's some sort of foot sweep throw, hip toss, whether he just drags him down like some of the other Kazakhstan and Russian type fighters do. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how he's going to get him there, but I do feel like he's going to ultimately get him there. And if he gets him on the ground, I just think Ian Garry is not going to have an answer. If this thing goes to a decision, it's going to be a decision with Shavkat winning. Okay? Ian Garry is not going to win a decision over Shavkat Rakhmonov. The only way that he will be able to do that if he is somehow able to keep Shavkat from taking him down for a total of 15 minutes in that fight. This is a 3-round fight, right? Yeah, a co-main. Yeah, should be a 3-round fight. So he has a total of 15 minutes that he is going to have to avoid this devastating, brutal ground attack from Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I think he's just not faced anybody that good. He's not faced anyone that dominating in that particular area of the game. And I think ultimately Ian Garry is going to succumb to the ground attack of Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I do think he's probably good enough to not get finished, but I think it's going to be one of those things where Shavkat is going to kind of, I'm not saying he's just going to lay on top of him the whole time, but I think anytime that Ian Garry maybe does get back up to the feet, or the round ends and he's able to get back up to his feet, he's going to come back out there. It's only going to be a matter of time before Shavkat closes the distance again, gets him pushed up against the fence, drags him back down to the canvas, and then once he gets him down to the canvas, Ian Garry, he's a very well trained MMA fighter. I'm sure there will be a couple of times where he'll, you know, get to his knee, get himself back up to his feet, only to be taken right back down again. I just don't think he's going to be able to get up, create distance in between himself and Shavkat, and be able to really get off anything significant that is going to hurt Shavkat, because Shavkat has shown that he's able to take a punch. He got hit quite a lot by Jeff Neal. And Jeff Neal, he doesn't have a ton of power, but Jeff Neal can hurt people. Jeff Neal is a good striker. He's a good boxer. He throws the punches from the hips. He has a good stand-up boxing attack. And Shavkat was able to get hit multiple times from him. And, I mean, he just kind of ate it like it was his breakfast, and I think if Jeff Neal couldn't really hurt him, Ian Garry may have a little more power than Jeff Neal. He is a bigger individual, but not by a lot. I don't think he has, unless it's a kick, an up high kick that he's able to time him with. Maybe Garry and his team will be looking for that, because Shavkat is absolutely going to be coming in, and at times with entrances, whether it be wrestling, sambo, whatever it is, there are times that when guys come in, their head is what? Down. Okay? People don't usually come in with their head up, because then they can run right into a 2 or right into a 1 or right into whatever. Most of the time guys will put their heads down when they go in for a takedown, and maybe Garry and his team are going to be able to time like a knee up the middle, maybe a punch, maybe a kick when when they come together and then separate. Maybe if Garry gets his hands on his shoulder, kind of shucks him off for a second, maybe he can land a kick that way. I just think that it's not going to be likely that Ian Garry is going to be able to stay on his feet for the entirety of this fight. I just don't think he's going to be able to. And I think Shavkat is either going to submit him, or it's going to go to a decision, and it's going to be, a 30-27 sort of situation. I think Shavkat's smart. I don't think he's going to stand on the feet with Ian Garry, and I think he's going to force this fight to the ground. The real question is whether Ian Garry is going to be able to keep him from doing that. I may completely eat my words, but I think that Ian Garry's O is going to go. as of December the 7th. That's it, guys. That's all I got. Let me know what you think about this breakdown. Let me know who you think's is going to go in this fight between Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Garry on December the 7th. I've been saying for a while, I'm disappointed that this isn't the main event. You know, we've got a banger fight like this, and, you know, Alexander Volkov and Cyril Gane are fighting right before Garry and Shavkat. So you got a couple of really good fights back to back, ones that I'm, as a fan, very interested in seeing. And then the main event is Alejandro Pantoja. Now we get to watch him just pretend like he's punching just so he can go in and jock sniff for 5 rounds. Anyway, that's for a whole nother video. I already did a whole nother video on that, so I'm not going to go into it. But let me know what you guys think. If you've not, again, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below. All of that stuff helps. All of that stuff helps to support the channel and help the channel grow, so I would very much appreciate it. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. I will see you on the next one. Peace.